AmaZulu King Misuzulu KaZwelithini has filed papers in the Pietermaritzburg High Court to divorce one of his wives. According to the court papers that are in possession of the SABC, the king says their relationship has broken down and there's no reasonable prospect of reconciliation. The king further says in the papers that they have experienced trouble in their marriage on several occasions and had tried to restore their relationship without success. The SABC is withholding the name of the wife to protect the identity of their children. Meanwhile, the attorney of the Queen, has issued a statement confirming that divorce papers have been filed, and he says he's not at liberty to discuss the merits of the case, and he says King Misuzulu and his client are married in a civil union. We'll stay with us now as we unpack it further. We welcome cultural expert from the University of Kwazulu-Natal, Professor Sihawukele Ngubane. Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much, and compliments of the season, Prof. Appreciate your time. Let's just start with how are you processing this information?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bongi and your viewers. This came as a shock and a surprise to most of us, since the Zulu King is expected to have his queen as Indlovukazi. Indlovukazi is a very sacred institution because he's not only married to the king, but she becomes the mother of the nation. So that is why it's a shock to the nation to hear the news of the filing of the divorce papers. Was
it handled correctly, in your view, for it to head to the courts in this manner?
In my view, marriage in the first instance is negotiated. So if anything goes wrong within the relationship between a couple, any couple, the elders of the families will sit down and mediate the process, because in the African culture, there is no grounds for a divorce. So that is why it is important that this is mediated between the families instead of going to the courts.
And when then the mediation efforts fail, what becomes the options that are available?
I think the option is obvious, because when you consider that customary marriage is recorded within the Home Affairs Department, it means that the law dictates the dissolution of the marriage. So that's an obvious option that should take place. But for this sacred institution of the royal family, it is not expected, because there is a lot of people that surrounds the king that can advise the king otherwise, or also get the community members to go and negotiate on behalf of the king.
So when it comes to, of course, the fact that Zulu customs, as you listen to some of the cultural experts who are saying that Zulu customs do not accommodate divorce, and you've alluded to that as well. How does this then begin to change the picture for the AmaZulu nation, possibly?
I would rather say that the king is the custodian of the Zulu culture, and the king is expected to lead by example so that people can learn from his behavior. And what is happening is shocking the nation. Some people are losing trust to the king about what is happening at the moment.
And what would then be the implications of that? Because, as you say, he's the custodian of culture. And if he takes this decision, certainly a number of people could potentially look and say that maybe it is now welcome. You can explore this option possibly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so, because you see, marital affairs are quite personal, but people can learn from what the king as the role model is doing. So it can have a bad implication to the nation at large if the king decides to go ahead with the divorce. Because, as I said, this needs to be negotiated. The African tradition is basically based on negotiating. You negotiate with the living, you negotiate with the dead before you can make a move of this nature, because this is a rare move in the history of the Zulu nation.
So, Prof, I wonder, though, in your view, if this was not to be expected, and I ask it because he says that they've been having problems for quite some time now, and at the same time, you know, there was, you know, a bit of statements that are put out in public, people drawing their own inferences when it comes to what could have potentially been going on there. So some people are saying that for them, they're not shocked. Others are saying that he's a young king. He should be allowed to make his own errors, as it were?
Yeah, I think your observation is on point. And I think what is happening at the moment is going to dent the image of the royal household and the royal family and the monarch at large. And if it can be avoided, I think it will be a move in the right direction. There were instances where we read from the social media, and also the fact that the nation was expecting a Zulu royal wedding. We've never had a wedding. Now to have an instance where there is a divorce before the nation enjoys the feast of witnessing the wedding is very unfortunate.
Can we trace it back in the family before such a decision?
There's nothing on the record that I'm aware of, because the cultural significance of the queens is symbolic, and it is important to the nation, and it creates a sacred bond. So nothing of this nature has even occurred. I've just learned that during King Cetshwayo's time there was a divorce, but it is very rare, and it's uncommon to have a divorce.
So does it then call for it, as some have said, to say that maybe all of them should be in customary marriages as opposed to a civil union? Because as we understand from the Queen's lawyers, they were in a civil union, and other cultural experts are saying that this complicates the picture and actually means that now it needs to be dissolved in the courts, and it can't be done either way. So others are saying that maybe then consider the option of customary marriages only. Is that a possibility?
It's up to people who are involved in a marriage, whether they go for civil marriage or customary marriage. As I alluded before, Bongi, that even the customary marriage has got its own tradition, and it's regulated by law, because it was recognized in 1998. So you cannot dodge the processes, because it's also legislated as a customary law. And also there is this common ground on the issue of polygamy, that the first wife as a principal wife is consulted before another wife can come in. So all these things should take precedence when it comes to this the customary marriage. So it's not a shortcut, because as I said, even customary marriage, it is recorded by Home Affairs. So there is a fusion of tradition and modernity into the law of South Africa, because even recognizing the Customary Marriage Act was part of redress for the neglect of the customs of the Zulu or African people in the past.
So, Prof, in light of that then, it's now headed for the courts. Does this then still, in your view, and I know we're discussing this as, you know, as we're saying there's modernization, some of these things could be up in the air, but is there still provision, because we've seen in some of the cases that a wife would remain in the homestead, even if mediation hasn't worked, then she's in the homestead with the children, still part of the family, but of course we know what has happened. Can it still be the case, possibly, even though it's now taken this role in public?
Of course, that can be the case, because, you know, I've mentioned earlier about the grounds for a divorce in the African setup, that even adultery, infidelity does not amount to a divorce. A person who has experienced that, they keep the wife within the homestead, but far from the rest of the dwellings, to show that there's something wrong. But the wife cannot be sent home, because the mere fact that in Zulu we use the word ukwenda. Ukwenda means to die. So when you get married, intentionally is that you are going to die to that family. So there's no point where you should go back to your home, unless there is something very, very gruesome or serious that can take you back to your homestead. Because even if there is a fallout between the king and the wife, but the wife should still remain in the homestead until the matter is resolved amicably.
So, Prof, just generally speaking then, what happens, let's say, for example, as you say, umuntu wendile, and they've now gone into the family, but of course, something happens and they are still within the homestead, or maybe would like to move on with their lives. Is that even an option? Can they have someone come and maybe a new suitor take her from the family? Because other people are raising that question to say, can she remarry? And if she does, how does she do this?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But as I said, the wife can still remain in the homestead. If the husband, or in this case the king, wants to move on, I think it is his right to move on. But I'm not. That's why I'm saying it's a difficult one, because even the wife should have her human rights being observed here, so that if she wants to go and start a new life, she can do that. But in the case of the pending outcome of the divorce papers, I think it is better for the status quo to remain until a final decision is taken.
Prof, I always enjoy picking your brain on these things, and we are now in uncharted waters, as you say. Modernization is coming into the place, and at the same time there's a lot going on. But thank you so much for at least just educating us on some of the things. Appreciate your time this afternoon. That's a cultural expert there from the University of Kwazulu-Natal, Professor Sihawukele Ngubane.